All right, so moving forward, next Monday we had discussed and decided upon your next activity in here, looking at perch. So I'm not a fish cleaning person, so I will hand that over to yourself on Monday. Um, and one of the things I know when you looked at the shark, okay, this is the the book that we use, the author, I think it's Hickman and Roberts, and there's a lab guide that goes along with it. And I don't know, maybe it's because it's a little older, we could look at it that way. It's not always the best tool to use. And we'll find that out when we dissect pigeons as well, but that's a little ways down the road. Yeah, and you can certainly use this as a guide when they're looking at perch, but we just usually use the textbooks. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things we're going to talk about. And for the behavior of fish, again, I'm not really an expert on, well, certainly not an expert. We're going to talk about their buoyancy, because when we talk about cartilaginous fish, what's true about their buoyancy? Well, first of all, you have to know what buoyancy means first. Right, because typically when you look at the human body, okay, do humans float or sink in water? Some people, the majority of us float. It's panic that sets in, and I'm not a very good swimmer either, and it's one of those aspects to where it is really tough to quiet that panic sound down. Because one of the things we had to do for training, I was going to go to OCS school, and I did go to officer commission school for, I did one weekend, and I said, this is just too much. That's the problem with my estimation, being in the military and being a full-time educator at the same time. Just don't have that availability to take Thursday and Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and go over to Rapid City. And then you got to plan for those 2 days. And then when you come back on Monday, then you have to go over everything that you had planned for that Thursday and Friday. But anyway, the first drill that we had attended, it's one of those, you had your full uniform on and you were tied to a rifle, and you stood at the edge of the pool, and once you get your uniform wet, it gets to be pretty heavy. You had to be pushed into the pool, go grab your rifle or weapon, and get to your back, get to the back of the side of the pool. But it's my understanding why people have problems with this is what they do in the water. They think that it's going to hold them up. This helps, but the moment you do this, it's going to push you back down. That's what makes sense to me. Maybe lifeguards, yes. Does it make more sense to do this? Is that what they teach you to do too? So then, because the human body is fairly buoyant, and then frog strokes, I don't know if you've ever heard that, you just kick up with your legs. I mean, say that again?
Frog or scissor.
So, oh, okay. Scissor kicks. Okay. So, again, the human body is fairly buoyant. It's sharks that are not, because they will sink in the water because they're just too heavy. So, upon our examination of sharks, what are two things that aid the shark in its buoyancy? Well, three things. It's not so much the tail. That'll propel it forward. What was that? Oh, that's for finding prey. We said this will probably stand out in your mind. The moment you open up that cavity, This is really, really large. The liver. Then once you feel that liver, what did it feel like? And it had a particular color to it, right? There's yellow fluid around it. It's what we call squalene. You don't, I know we said that over there. Squalene. It's an oily based compound because what does oil do in water? Sink or float? Yeah, it'll float. So not just the squalene, the liver will help in its buoyancy, and then its exterior appendage, not the tail. I mean, not for the reason that you're thinking. You're thinking that it propels it forward and that'll keep it up. Yes, that's true. The pectoral fins. So one feeds into the other, the tail and then the pectoral fins. Okay. Now, when it comes to bony fish, okay, why would we say this? Not very efficient for the movement for small fish. Think about that for a moment as you're writing this. I'm just going to speculate that Mrs. Preheim knows the words and lines to Finding Nemo by heart because her boys have watched that movie over and over and over. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I watched it a couple times. Good show.
Put a couple zeros behind that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Frozen, that's one that we watched a lot. Lydia.
Oh. Oh. Yeah. So won't belt out one of the songs from Frozen. Then you're going to be stuck in your head? Well, just let it go. Just let it
Those
go.
were the exact words in my head.
Yeah. Well, okay, so when we're looking at this, okay, Nemo's trying to get away from Bruce. He doesn't stand a chance. Why is that? Okay, so yes, he can't swim as fast, but it's not that it's Nemo's fault, but his anatomy is not in his favor. Okay, so the larger the fish, the faster it can swim. Okay, because when you look at smaller fish, okay, it's going to have a smaller tail, and the muscles just are not big enough. They can only maybe move, maybe an inch in either direction. You get a shark with a larger tail and a much larger musculature body being able to move maybe about 18 inches, and I'm just trying to visualize in my mind. The small fish doesn't stand a chance because swimming in a medium like water is tough enough. But if you don't have anything to propel yourself forward and don't have the muscular structure to drive it either, it's just not very efficient. And that's one of the things that sometimes I think Disney does a pretty good job of placing in these movies. Okay, and yes, I was wrong, Mr. Wagner. That's going to put us further behind because typically we do watch that at the end. So, yeah. So it probably won't be February 2nd, unless the groundhog doesn't see his shadow. If he sees his shadow and gets scared and ducks on her, says 6 more weeks of winter. Darn you, Puxatawny Phil. Do you know that? Why don't you smell? Why don't you spell Puxatawny now? Isn't it like 13 letters long? It's for a town in Pennsylvania, and it's a very, very long name. Anyway, moving on then. Okay. And what's odd about and you can see this in fish. The musculature design is nowhere near the same as in aves, mammals, reptiles, okay? Because the bands of muscle do not move straight up and down like it does in those animals. When we're talking about these, it's just picture an M on its side, or W laying on its side. That's right. That's why I got fired at Mars Candy, because I kept throwing the W's away for bagging M&Ms. I said, this isn't any good. This is a W. It's supposed to be an M. Throw it away. I just think that they're just paying too much attention to what they're saying here. But yeah, that's one of the things that I've heard years ago is, yep. Got fired from Mars Candy because he kept throwing the W's away for packaging M&Ms. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you don't need to see the picture of the perch, because you probably already know this. If you clean fish, you already know this too. These zigzag bands that we're talking about. And I don't know if it's an accurate depiction of a W or if it just keeps repeating itself. Is it just one W, or does it just repeat itself all the way down? Okay. And then it just keeps on going from anterior to posterior, right? Okay. So it's just, like I said, it's just not the type of muscular structure that you would envision, or what you had learned last year in anatomy class. Okay, we want to get to, we had talked about the buoyancy. We make reference to the cartilaginous fish. It's their liver that has this compound in it. Starts with an S. Squalene. And this oily compound called squalene actually helps them in their buoyancy, along with their pectoral fins. Bony fish, oh, I was thinking, okay. With bony fish, it's just a little different, okay? When you, how can I say this? When you clean fish, do you ever get curious with, oh, this is this structure, or you just get the guts out of there and just toss it?
I usually open the guts.
Oh.
See what they eat.
Okay.
I don't know if it might help with catching fish, but it's cool to see sometimes his minnows and stuff. But then you can find like egg sacs, there's bird sacs.
Okay.
It's cool too.
Huh. Well, see, my problem is I got to catch them first. We had that discussion before. And sometimes it's one of them, we had that discussion. You should have been here yesterday. Well, sometimes you're pulling up with your camper and they're at the cleaning station at the campground. There's guys and they're hanging their fish up, and should have been here today. Tomorrow's too late. Yep. Yeah. Which sometimes I think it really helps, obviously, to have the right type of equipment too, because you definitely want a stainless steel table if possible, right? And do you have that? Where do you clean your fish?
Pick up that. Usually that's my cleaning table. Just because I don't have to clean it off like out or rain.
Okay.
Usually I'll do.
But doesn't that smell?
No. It's, I don't know. I don't care. It's,
Oh.
because I throw away the guts and all that, so there's just a little bit of blood maybe.
But if you don't wash that off right away, that doesn't
It
smell.
dries out.
Okay. Good to know. You like to fish? You like to fish? No? Oh, well, of course, yeah. So then what happens if you catch a fish? Are you just going to throw it back? Or would you go, hey, I'm going to clean this?
Probably give it to my dad. And he can deal with it.
Well, why would he let you do for yourself what you can do for yourself? I know that's a tautology, I know, but okay. Okay. Same thing. Pops can clean it.
I just put it back.
Okay. But if they're still alive, don't you take your knife and take the handle of it and smack them between the eyes?
I usually do. Some people don't, but I think it's easier to clean them that way.
Okay.
Yeah, but I whack them.
Okay. Interesting. Because, well, like I said, I'm not a fisherman. I'd like to think so because I think I would enjoy it, but I can't catch anything. But, and you haven't, you haven't taken zoology,
No.
but your experience in fishing would probably account for this.
Definitely, yeah, I've definitely seen that.
Okay. Now, this is true with not only just fish, but also mammals as well, okay? And you might say, well, how's that possible with mammals? I can't remember if Jacob was here. I think he would remember this, but when we watched the evolution video about size, okay? Blue whales, it's odd that an animal that large will feed on something that small as krill, okay? Which means at the surface that would be pretty tough to do. But what these animals, these blue whales, will actually do is, I don't know if you want to say they hold their breath, but what happens is if their lungs, these blue whales, are full of air, does that make that animal more buoyant or less buoyant? Yeah, you fill that lung, or in case this, with this here, a gas gland or swim bladder, if that is full of air, it's going to be more buoyant. So when they exhale, try to get all the oxygen out of there, down they go. Even an animal that large will sink because it's somewhere around 1,200 feet. Maybe there's large schools of krill and enough for these animals to get their bites worth. So go down there, take a bite, and I don't know if it's just one or if it's repeated processes, but either their lungs are empty of air or this gas gland pushes all the air out and the fish will then sink. It's once you regulate that air in the swim bladder or gas gland that will then cause it to go up. So that's how they actually regulate their buoyancy then. So then, how does a fish know how to do this? Well, it's with anything in the animal kingdom. If it's something that you know how to do, but have not been taught that, we call that with an I. Anybody know? Yes and no. Like, for instance, Mr. Monty, your family goes through the calving process, right? have you ever seen a mom give birth to a calf? Okay, then probably as soon as it can stand, what's maybe one of the first things, I don't know if it's the first thing, what might that baby calf do? One of the first things it's going to possibly do. Exactly. Right. But you didn't teach that calf to do it. How did it know how to do that? Yeah, instinct. So whether you say it's instinct or it's something that's encoded / inherited in their DNA, either way, you could say one feeds into the other. But again, some of this, they're not taught that. They just know how to do this. And how it does it, I really have no idea. How does it extract oxygen out of the water? Well, diffusion does that. But then how does it take it from the gills and place it in and out of the swim bladder? That is, yeah, I don't have an answer for that. It just knows how to do that. The swim bladder contracts, the animal goes down. The swim bladder fills up, the animal will go to the surface or start to float at a higher level. Okay, where does that put us? Okay, this will be next week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we'll get this wrapped up next week with no problems. It says activity Monday. We'll still talk about the bony fish on Tuesday, vocabulary Wednesday, and probably some more of this, and then wrap it up on Thursday and Friday. So evaluations then on approximately January 30th and 31st, and then better find Nemo, and then somewhere around February 4, we'll move on to the reptiles. That's somewhat on what it is we plan on doing. All right, we'll catch up to you next time.